Yeah, I'm running, burning the midnight oil. April 17th, 2026, and we are on day 2083 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room there on Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. The epicenter, and even President Trump knows it's the epicenter. How do I know? Where else in the United States is he deploying 15,000 troops, right? Where else in the United States is he deploying the drone the drone destroyer, right? With the laser power. Where else is he doing that? So he knows that Fort Bliss, that El Paso, is the epicenter. And so let's get started. It's pretty late because so much information is coming in about the next steps for President Trump as he is wrapping up this whole um, Operation Epic Fury with Iran. And if you've been watching this channel, then you will absolutely know that we connect Iran to um, Jeffrey Epstein's Iran Contra. Iran Contra on steroids, Iran Contra 2.0 on steroids, right? That is now in alliance with the CJNG. The Iran Contra, they were always part, in alliance with the CIA, Khashoggi, um, and Jeffrey Epstein being the financier for the whole operation, and then for Khashoggi, and then also with the cartels, with all the drug running for weapons, the drugs for weapons or weapons for drugs. Um, and now it's really oil, right? Oil for drugs, oil and weapons for drugs, because we know that they were really stealing a lot of a lot of fuel theft and all of this. And the weapons got bigger, right? Because Iran was providing to Central America um, their drones, their very, very fancy drones. And we know that on February 10th and 11th, a drone went over the United States, and we at the epicenter in El Paso, and El Paso had to shut down its airspace. And then the next thing we knew, on the 22nd of February, so just 10 days later, 10, 11 days later, they raided El Mencho, who was a leader for the CJNG cartel in alliance with the El Paso cartel, okay, with the El Paso narco philanthropist cartel. And El Mencho was killed in the raid, during the raid, and fleeing. As he was fleeing, I guess he got hit, um, and but there were logbooks and there were ledgers, and they were sophisticated, very sophisticated information that provided intelligence. And 6 days later, um, uh, President Trump is giving the okay for Operation Epic Fury with Israel as our ally. So yeah, so that this shows you this led right to Iran. We know it leads right to Iran, and if you think of Iran, you can think of it as a gateway. It's a gateway for China, of course, and then we heard on the radio with the threats to our Navy. a person that did not sound Persian, did not sound like they spoke Farsi, but that they seemed to be Asian. Okay, they seemed to be Asian. And as everyone knows, Asian languages are not the same. They're absolutely not the same. And this one, I got a lot of comments that if you want to hear this accent, just go to my local Chinese grocery store or Chinese restaurant. So yeah, that voice was very, very telling. And we know we've been infiltrated. We know that our churches have been infiltrated. We know that our agencies have been infiltrated. We know that our law enforcement institutions have been infiltrated. Our universities have been infiltrated, which, that's another topic too. Uh, we know this is happening. So, is it crazy? Is it a reach too far to say that Iran also has been infiltrated and controlled? Right? I don't think it is. I don't think it is a reach too far at all, and um, it would explain the pipeline that was used for visas, and the fastest way I guess you can get a visa is through education, like if you have a university, right? So if CJNG wanted uh, Iranians or Chinese to come through, they would try to get visas for them. So this is just thoughts how it all, um, y- you know, how it all can happen. And with the control over the agencies and everything, I think that, there's a really good chance they figured it out, right? And that's why we have the problem that we do today. It's so infiltrated. Um, and, we need citizens in this United States, not people that are being exploited, because when they come into the country illegally, someone is their boss, they are enslaved, right? Someone is their master, and controls them. And I can confirm that with all of our investigation. They exploit the migrants, they exploit the unaccompanied minor migrants terribly. A lot of those are no more alive. So they absolutely exploit the migrants coming over. And if they're illegal, they really, really do a job on them. And so that's why that's not humane. That's why the whole thing with the Haitians, I believe, is not humane, because it's, telling everyone you don't have to follow our laws, right? And that just gets people really hurt, and we know that that's been happening. So going to, I can't let go of this Judge Marlene Gonzalez. Wow, wow, y'all. She's really the bottom of the barrel. I thought that Bill Hicks was the bottom of the barrel, and he is. He really is the bottom of the barrel. But this Marlene Gonzalez, this Judge Marlene Gonzalez, she really is the bottom of the barrel. Um, and she, of course, knows Marlon Soto. He was the CID agent that was assigned to our son's murder case, and would lie and mislead us, and would lie to the media, and he is directly connected to Marlene Gonzalez Hernandez. Of course, his name is Marlon Soto Hernandez. And, they have this Puerto Rican origin that is, you know, Puerto Rico's not that big, right? So I think Puerto Ricans tend to stick together. But the thing is when you work for the United States people, you're supposed to be true to your oath, right? That's why we have an oath. And that's not what Marlon Soto did. Marlon Soto conspired, and he conspired against the United States. This was a seditious conspiracy, right? And I would even say treasonous. And he should face the full force of the law um, with those. With what he did. With what he did, it was just so bad. So that is really important information. Uh, so, um, can you imagine? Marlene Gonzalez is tied to Leilani Hart, and um, of course, Soto is also tied to Leilani Hart. They're also tied together. They're also tied to Delirious Montanaz Barros. Uh, they are absolutely tied to the Duartes. They are tied to the cartel, Altero Alba. We know that they are absolutely tied to the cartel. So this does not look good for Marlene Gonzalez. And she's had a lot of run ins before because of the way she treats migrant minors, minors of migrants. She treats them very, very poorly. And then, of course, this whole thing with Lilani, giving her a change of name right after they heard that Richard was declared deceased. Okay, so that happened on April 24th, 2024. The next thing you knew, Leilani Hart was running to Marlene Gonzalez asking for a name change, asking for a name change so she could hide, right? So this is a really, really another piece of evidence that shows uh, guilt, absolutely guilt. So she's not doing too good legally. Absolutely, even though the name change was to hide her legally. But no, she's been caught. And yeah, the best thing for her to do is to turn herself in to get arrested, really. That's the best thing that Leilani Hart could do for herself. So there is just so much going on in the news with the media, and I hope that you take time to look at that. And then, of course, the AUSA. So the AUSA that confirmed that James um, James Montoya, he's not the legitimate DA, right? He's not the legitimate DA. He has a 2028 stamp, right? He has the Soroldi case hanging over him, the Mayelas hanging over him, which is the Walmart mass shooting case hanging over him. Did I say Soroldi, but also the Peter Melendez case hanging over him. As far as clear evidence goes, and of course, we've got more than that, but those are huge. Those are absolutely huge because of the obstruction of justice, and especially in our son's case too. So, for him uh, to say that he's not worried about his criminality, right? That he's not worried about the 2028 stamp, that he's not worried about my weapons, right? Uh, because the game is rigged, because the game is rigged and Jared Brown is on my side, right? Jared Brown is on my side. This is huge, huge news. Really big news. I'll even turn that on. It's really big news to have Jared Brown give protection to James Benoit Montoya, like the AUS, the assistant DA is telling the public. So the assistant DA is telling the public that that James Montoya says the game is rigged because Jared Brown is giving me protection. Well, what say you, Jared Brown? Right? Is that what's going on? You know, is the game rigged? That's taxpayers' money, right? That's taxpayers' money, and we know that Connell Wetton is in the business of rigging, and we know that, um, oh, what's her name, Vias? I put her up there. Um, that she was in that El Paso Community Foundation is in the job of rigging. And you're telling us that the number one law enforcer, the FBI, is in the job of rigging, and so says Montoya. Well, the assistant DA uh, says Montoya is not worried about all of his sorority case, his Peter Melendez case, the Walmart mass shooting that he botched, Richard Halliday's case that it's ongoing still, but he's covered up for, and yeah, he's not worried. He's not worried about that 2028 stamp. That's not a joke. Timestamps are very, very, very important. There's no law enforcement. There's no cases without timestamps. There's no justice without timestamps. There's no justice system without timestamps. So, yeah, and I think that this is why, you have these reporters, they're sellouts, right? They're sellouts, and they're fake news, and, who knows? w- Um, they're just for the benefit of the cartels, for the benefit of the El Paso Community Foundation, for the benefit of the El Paso cartel narco philanthropists. That's why these journalists are there. That's why they get paid. And because anyone standing in front of that El Paso Community Foundation after what we've been through and the propaganda that they have fed us and the propaganda with this deck, debt plaza. Yeah, it's absolutely disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Especially when they know this is the laser that is this is Fort Bliss, as Trump was in Las Vegas, because he was saying that's the birthplace of the no tax on tips, and he was celebrating that. But at the same time, he is ramping up El Paso, he's ramping up Fort Bliss for the next stop. And the next stop, we believe, he says it's Cuba. And, I don't want to say, but I'm thinking because of where he's locating 15,000 troops and everything else, it's Mexico. It's Mexico because Chihuahua, Mexico is in very bad shape, y'all. It's in very bad shape. So, yeah, when you have candidates being killed right there in front of their house, right in their head, yeah, it's in bad shape. So, this, I hope I covered everything with Marlene Gonzalez, because the big news on that, and I think I said it, and I should say it again, is just right after our declaration of death, Leilani ran to her for a change of name. That just to put a little, uh, wrapper around her, whatever, a shield around her just temporarily, it's not going to help, right? But yeah, she wanted her name changed, and it was an illegal name change because she's confessed to the worst type of crimes against children. She's a predator, right? She's a predator, and then of course, facilitating that and her illegal status and it just her convicted criminal record. Uh, there's no way under the law any kind of change of name should have been granted. So this tells you that they are, that they know each other, that they're doing each other a favor and everything. So, yeah, that is really breaking news. Breaking news. Because that puts, and of course, it was Leilani Hart, that um, CID lead investigator in our son's murder, was protecting. He was protecting Leilani Hart in front of 15 plus agencies, along with Xochitl, right? Richard's first, okay, so this is Richard's first platoon leader's mother and Richard's first platoon uh, leader, first sergeant, um, that, oh my gosh, it was so bad. Yeah, those two, they're responsible along with Tavita Nuusa and Solomon Nuusa. Um, absolutely. So please share all this information because they knew each other. They all knew each other. They were all in part of the same gang. They were all part of the same cartel gang. And El Paso cartel, the El Paso cartel. And yeah, we can't let that stand. And we're tough in the United States. We're tough. And we're tough in Texas. Absolutely. And I grew up in Texas, so I know they're very, very tough in Texas. So I just want to thank everybody, and we will be back.